Welcome into PFF HQ. Austin Gayle here with senior analyst Sam Monson. We're talking a little Arizona Cardinals offense, specifically the passing attack. They made huge investments at the head coaching position, Cliff Kingsbury, an offensive mastermind, drafted number 1 overall, Kyler Murray, and they fit him with weapons. In addition to bringing guys in the draft, they also have a guy that last year played a lot more in the slot than he has in years past and saw a little bit of a rejuvenation in his career in Larry Fitzgerald, a guy that Kyler Murray should lean on in year 1 of his career.
Yeah, this offense is going to be fascinating to watch this year. We have a new quarterback who is, something of a unique prospect because of his size, because of his stature, because of his dynamism with the ball in his hands in Kyler Murray. And then you have this really true college spread system coming in with Cliff Kingsbury that we haven't really seen in the NFL, at least assuming he sort of ports over a rough analog of the system he was using at Texas Tech. There really hasn't been anybody go that hard towards the whole spread system in the NFL yet. So we could see that in college. Now you got to look at what the offense looks like with the personnel around him, and that's big. So we've got Larry Fitzgerald, who's been the stalwart in Arizona for years and is somehow still playing at a really high level despite being 127 years old at this point. 128. We got like 3 straight years of 80 plus PFF grades. That's a really good mark. Last year down to 73, which is potentially the start of his decline, but I think the bigger thing is looking at what the situation was in Arizona last year. So yeah, Larry Fitzgerald grade was down, but the quarterback situation was disastrous. Josh Rosen was horrendous year 1. This is why they've moved on from him to Kyler Murray, but it wasn't all Josh Rosen's fault either, because the offensive line was the worst unit in the entire NFL and arguably the worst unit we've ever seen since grading started at PFF back in 2006. So the offensive line was a disaster. The quarterback was therefore a disaster, and therefore the receivers look worse than they are. So I think you can probably give Larry Fitzgerald the benefit of the doubt for last year and still expect him to be a really good weapon this year, assuming those other things are better, which they should be.
Looking at Larry Fitzgerald, specifically his age, isn't allowing him to be that big play threat outside the red zone. But in the red zone, this guy had the best receiving grade among slot receivers in the red zone, among slot receivers at least 100 snaps in the red zone over the past 3 years. He gets it done in the red zone. I think that's where you need to come up big when you're a 35-year-old plus receiver like Larry Fitzgerald. Staying on incumbents with the Arizona Cardinals, Christian Kirk, going into year 2 of his career, a slot receiver at Texas A&M. He played only 43 snaps at outside receiver at Texas A&M, but in Arizona he played a primary outside role. 70% of his routes run were outside wide receiver. What do you expect from him going into year 2, probably playing a mix of slot and outside?
Yeah, and Kirk was always a big slot receiver at Texas A&M, so he's a guy that did naturally translate or transition outside. He wasn't a guy that was playing inside because he was a small, shifty slot receiver. So it did kind of make sense to flip him outside and leave Larry Fitzgerald inside where he had been so effective later in his career. Again, I think we'll see an improved version of Christian Kirk once the quarterback situation is better, once the offensive line holds up long enough for there to be a viable passing attack. I think really the incumbent weapons they've had are not bad. You've got Larry Fitzgerald, you've got Christian Kirk, you've got David Johnson in the backfield, who's only a couple of seasons removed from that incredible year where he was, PFF's number 1 ranked receiver across any position, as well as being a devastating ball carrier as well. I think those guys will be an impressive core to build around. And then the really interesting thing is the draft picks that they've added to those guys, like Andy Isabella in particular.
With Christian Kirk, looking into the numbers, he didn't have a terrible season. He ended up earning a 70-plus overall grade, which ranked inside the top 5 among rookie wide receivers. And to do that was such a steep learning curve, playing so much more outside receiver than he saw at Texas A&M. I think you can only see him move forward in year 2. And you got to talk more receivers. These drafted guys, Andy Isabella, Hakeem Butler, specifically because at Texas Tech, Cliff Kingsbury ran 10 and 20 personnel. Second to only Mike Leach, and he's a disciple of Mike Leach. They're going to run a lot of heavy wide receiver sets, 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. That's what we expect. So moving to the 3rd and 4th receivers on this roster, starting with Andy Isabella, what kind of impact do you think he can have, the number 1 graded receiver this past year in Arizona?
Yeah, those 10 and 20 personnel groups are key to this offense. We're talking 1 or 2 backs and no tight ends. So there's a ton of wide receivers that are going to be on the field for this spread offense. This is proper college stuff where you see 4 or 5 wide consistently. That's what we're hoping to see for the Cardinals, which means these new draft picks are going to be seeing extensive playing time. They're not just going to be making up the numbers down the depth chart. They're actually going to be seeing a significant amount of slots or a significant amount of snaps. And Andy Isabella is the most fascinating prospect of the group because his grades were incredible in college, highest PFF grade in the nation last year. And what's fascinating about him is he looks like a slot receiver. He looks like a Wes Welker, a Julian Edelman, a Danny Amendola, a small, shifty slot receiver, but he isn't. He's a track star. He's a blazing speedster on the outside. He's typically a deep threat. He's a guy that played outside primarily in college and I think should remain outside because I don't know that he's actually that good at the shifty slot receiving, route running stuff. I think he's better as a deep threat, as a guy that can play the outside route tree. And if they keep him there with Larry Fitzgerald inside and Christian Kirk being the other outside receiver, that gives them a potentially really interesting trio because Isabella provides the speed that those other two guys don't necessarily have.
Moving to the other rookie receiver, another guy with positional versatility. He won as a big slot at Iowa State in addition to winning outside, Hakeem Butler.
Yeah, Butler is a guy I think that has more work to do than certainly Andy Isabella, but other guys on this roster as well to earn that playing time. He's more of a project player, I think. His physical tools are incredible. He's 6'5", 230 pounds more or less. He's a big body receiver that wins at the catch point, that wins after the catch as well by just guys skittling off him. They can't tackle the guy that's that big and strong, but I think he has a lot more work to do in terms of his craft when it comes to route running because that stuff is harder at the next level. The athletes are better, the corners are bigger, they're not so dominated by just raw size the way college prospects are. So I think we'll see a more of a slow burn with Butler, who's a guy that definitely has the talent to contribute to this team and will probably get more of an opportunity in this offense given all of the 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, but will probably be a lot further down the pecking order or down the reads than some of those other receivers.
I would agree 100%, but even adding Hakeem Butler as a number 4 wide receiver or number 5, wherever he sorts out, is a huge upgrade for this Arizona Cardinals offense. You get Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray, two, talented, versatile rookie pass catchers. You got Caleb Wilson, the tight end at UCLA, in the 7th round. There's a lot to love about this passing game, especially if they get David Johnson involved. And we're going to be talking up the Arizona Cardinals all off season. We're really excited to see Cliff Kingsbury and company take the NFL by storm. For more content like this, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel to check out all of our videos, or go ahead and go to the site to check out our articles at ProFootballFocus.com.